Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. Alright, I am here tonight with a look at Waste Nights, 2nd edition. I have everything set up here. This is just the base pledge with no expansions or add-ons, anything. There are a couple of small little modular stretch goals that come with the base pledge, and we'll take a real brief look at those. But yeah, so this is everything that you would get. One really nice thing about this game is that even with the stretch goals or even with the add-ons, everything, if you went all in, everything fits inside one base box. I mean, how cool is that? There are actually empty spaces in like the base pledge for things that only come with certain stretch goals or certain add-ons. This was the first Kickstarter to arrive in quite a while that didn't stress me out when I was opening it and getting things ready, when thinking about it. This game in this state, especially here with just the base pledge, reminds me of a game that I would have gone into the game store, 10 or so years ago and just bought off the shelf, got home, set it up, read the rules, played, and didn't stress out about an abundance of stuff, like just too much, with boxes and boxes of things to store and organize. It is a totally manageable amount of components, and on top of that, it's a pretty good game. I am really surprised by this. I had heard some pretty bad things about the first edition and its rulebook, but I've got to say that I set this game up, I read the rules a couple times, and I have not had any major issues. There are a couple little small details that I think are still missing. One is when you draw a item card from the gear deck, do you get it on its broken side or its working side? When you buy stuff, it comes broken, but it doesn't say anywhere in the rulebook, at least what I can find, when you draw an item as a reward or something you find. So that's one thing. And another thing, there was one other kind of little small detail, but for the most part, I was able to read the rules, set up the game, and have a really good time right away without stressing out about poor rules. So just right off the bat, this game had a lot going for it, because it seems like more and more these days, big Kickstarters just stress me out. So this is not a big Kickstarter. This is a very manageable Kickstarter. The rulebook itself is pretty good. It's well laid out. There's a few little things about like some organization that I think could be better, but you get a nice setup. You learn all about your setup. You learn how to play the game. You learn about your the actions that you can take on your turn and all of the different components. There are a lot of pictures and there are examples. Nothing is too complicated or convoluted. It does have a nice index and a nice information sheet there, and a chronicle sheet that you can print off or photocopy to keep track of your adventures. Another thing in documentation wise that this game comes with is a Kickstarter guide, which goes through all of the components you're going to get just as the stretch goals, what they look like. It's going to tell you the things that came with the base pledge stretch goals, and it's going to tell you information about all the different add-ons. So really nice documentation in this game. Again, they made things easy on us. They kept the stress levels down. So there are quite a few things that I like about this game. If you look at it, it looks like a hex crawl. It looks like you're going to be going out into the wilderness on a hex crawl adventure, a random encounter adventure, just going out and exploring. And that's what I thought, and I do lament a little bit that it's actually not that, and I am hoping that a scenario comes out in which you can just go out into the wilderness and try to survive a dangerous hex crawl. But what this really is it is a scenario-driven adventure game in which you are going to be exploring points of interest. Each scenario is going to have you put different points of interest on the map, whether it's going to be these challenge tokens or it's going to be these plot points. And you need to take your vehicle, and yes, there are vehicles in this game. And you need to take your vehicle. A couple examples here are a truck or an off-road vehicle. You have places where you can store your gas, how many additional movement points you can get if you spend some gas, how much damage you can take, repair costs, how much gear you can store in your vehicle, and how many points of movement it gives you. But you're going to be going out to these locations that the scenario tells you to place the tokens at, and then you are going to be reading from this book of tales, which is basically a choose your own adventure. This game really is a hybrid interactive game book and board game. You do spend equal amounts of time in each. And I can see if you play this game probably with more than 2 players, there's going to be a lot of downtime, because sometimes the entries will have you going through quite a few, like 4 or 5 different entries that you will be reading in the book, making choices, having combat, passing different skill tests, and all of that kind of stuff. For me, it's a fantastic solo game. However, there's one caveat there. It only comes without any of the add-ons, expansions. There are only 3 scenarios that you can play solo. The first is called Road to Ruin, and that is really a tutorial scenario that you can play with a few different heroes. What are the heroes called in this? Waste Knights. You can play with a few different Waste Knights. You have to choose, I think, between 4 different ones to play that scenario, the opening scenario with. And it kind of teaches you how to play, but each of the Waste Knights is going to have its own little adventure through that wasteland. So I've played that twice with 2 different Waste Knights, and each one was pretty different and pretty cool. And then I am playing now the first co-op scenario, which is called Safe Haven. Then there is a co-op scenario called Awakening. And then there is a competitive scenario called Sunken Treasures. And then there is also a bonus scenario, as I think it was a stretch goal, that is included in the base game called Rise of the Red Lord. So it is a little stingy on the scenarios, but each scenario can probably be played a handful of times because there are different choices and different things that you will encounter. So far, I have found the entries to be pretty well written. Haven't found very many like spelling errors or anything like that. I'm sure there are some, but so far I've been pleasantly surprised with the quality of the writing in Waste Knights. So I am playing as 2 characters in this scenario. I have my Women of the Wasteland party here. I have Alinta, the Spirit Warrior, and you can see all the stuff that she comes with. She's armed right now with this barbed wire club, and she's got a vest. This is a good melee weapon. The dice system is pretty simple. You have 4 different strengths of dice, and you have white is the weakest, then green, then blue, and then red, with different kinds of symbols that you will be rolling. And I have some armor that can protect me from hits. Right now I have 1 point of radiation damage. As you get more, you start to lose dice to roll, or you cannot heal. I'm all healed up right now. This is your experience track. As you hit these dark milestone numbers, you can upgrade your character by, each character has their own little deck of upgrades. So you have a couple skills that you can upgrade, and then some of the characters, they can actually upgrade to better weapons like that only they can use. So that is pretty cool. And then I have some fuel on my off-road vehicle there. In my off-road vehicle right now, I have a frag grenade and a crossbow. I have some medicine here, and I have some magazines here with ammunition. So if I want, I can use a gun. And I got injured. And when you get injured, when you die, you take one of these unconscious cards that has a random injury on the back. And you flip that over when you become when you regain consciousness. And right now I am half blind, so certain symbols on the dice have no impact. And there are a handful of different injury cards that you will have to use throughout the game and you will suffer from. Additionally, if your vehicle takes too much damage, it gets wrecked and then it malfunctions, and then you have to do a special repair action. And then my second character I'm playing with is Nellie Thompson, the Stalker. She's good at searching. Right now she has an AK-47, which I just found, which is an awesome weapon, especially with her gun ability, which is pretty good. She has some trash armor, and then she has this danger sense, which that allows her to have a better chance of having a less bad encounter. So a really quick overview of the game. Like I said, you are going to be going out into the wasteland. You're going to be traveling to points of interest, to have encounters, to read through the book, to try to get enough clues and get enough information to progress the story. Each scenario progresses in a certain way, and you learn about how it progresses while you are playing. On your turn, you can take 2 different actions. You can move, you can camp. Camping is where you can heal and repair your items. Heal yourself, repair your items. You can explore, which is a really cool kind of pressure luck system. You have this explore deck, and if you explore, you flip a card and you look at the type of terrain you're in, whether you're on a road, in the shrubs, in the desert, or a mountain, and you get those items that you find. Sometimes you will take damage. Sometimes your car will take damage. Sometimes you will uncover radiation spots or little bad things. But depending on your character's exploration stat, you can press your luck and say, let's say I was in a desert and I drew that and I didn't like that one. I didn't need more ammo. So I could, if I had a exploration of 3, I could pick another card. Okay, well now I found some gasoline or a magazine and I take a damage. Or I found gas or magazine and I take 1 damage. Okay, well I can press my luck again and so on until you finally have used up all of your exploration. Then you have to take the final card. So really, really neat system of exploration. I love it. I love pressure luck mechanisms in adventure games, and I wish more games had those. The coolest thing I think about this game is the threat token system. It is a really neat way of adding variety to the deck of encounter cards. So actually there's 2 things I really like. You have different decks of encounter cards depending on the space you are in. At the end of your movement, you always draw an encounter card depending on where you land. If you land in the shrubs, on a road, in the desert, or in the mountains. Okay, so this is shrubs and mountains, and then this deck is for road and deserts. And there are quite a number of different kinds of encounters you will have. You will have some monster encounters. You will have some events. You will have these lettered encounters. When you draw one of those, you go to your scenario and you see if that letter is represented, and then you go to a special paragraph in the book. So there are special encounters for each of these scenarios. That is kind of like Aftermath, and I always appreciate when a card has multiple uses like that. But there are non-combat encounters and in combat encounters, and some of them will have these things called threats. In addition to the cards having a threat, sometimes when you pass through certain spaces, especially spaces with this exclamation point, you will also have to draw a threat token from the bag. Now there are only a few, there aren't a lot, but you have these number of threat tokens. Some are red and some are, or they all have two sides, a yellow side and a red side. And it depends on which kind of encounter you drew. So I landed here. I'm about ready to do this story point here. I passed through one threat token to get here, and I drew this sandstorm, which told me to draw another threat. Since this is a non-combat encounter, we face the yellow side of the threat tokens, which means I take some radiation damage and a point of physical damage, and then I also have to do whatever the sandstorm tells me. So I get caught in this wicked sandstorm. Some sand blasts my face and hurt me. It's irradiated sand, so I take some radiation damage. And then I have to pass a Tech 2 test. Well, that is Alinta, my spirit warrior. Her tech is only a white D6. So I have to roll that. I have to try to get 2 successes. Only 1. Okay, so I failed that test. I break 1 working gear card for each missing. So I missed by 1. I have to, one of my weapons or my piece of my armor gets broken. And then if you have a light vehicle, your vehicle suffers damage as well. Luckily, this vehicle right here is medium. If my bike was going through it on the other character, the bike is light. The bike would have taken damage from that sandstorm. So really cool. I mean, there are all kinds of different things that can happen from these threat tokens. My vehicle could have taken damage. I could be, it was a really bad sandstorm, which would have negated one of my successes. My vehicle could have taken 2 damage. So really cool system, a really easy and elegant way to add to the variety of encounter cards. I don't know why I haven't seen that system in more games. Love it. I absolutely love that. Now let's say I would have drawn this card, which are the amputees. This is an enemy card, and they fight with melee damage, or they fight with a melee attack. They are a gang, and I think they're mutants. Well, if your encounter card is a combat card, then you face the red tokens. And in this case here, they would do 2 additional damage to me, and they have 1 + 1 health. So their health would go up to 4. I do really like the combat in this game. It's very simple. You have a ranged attack at the beginning of the combat. So if you have a ranged weapon, or if the enemy has a ranged weapon, you attack then. If either one of you dies, combat is over. If you kill the enemy in ranged, combat is over. You don't go on to melee unless they have a thing called Relentless, which these guys do. So Relentless, you always go to melee. And then you go to your melee, and then depending on who wins or loses, you resolve the effects. And combat only lasts 1 round. There's no defense roll. It's all in 1 roll. Enemies attack, you attack. Attacks happen simultaneously. The enemies can get incredibly powerful, especially if you have a lot of threat tokens out there. But let's say I would have killed these guys. I would get to draw 1 gear card, and I would find some medicine. So really, really neat encounter system. I think it is quite enjoyable. I love drawing these out of the bag. I love never knowing exactly what is going to get added to them. And in a way, it makes each one of these cards have more versions of that card because of the variability of these threat tokens. So if I have a complaint about the game, is the scenarios, because it's such a work of interactive fiction, because you are really going through this game book, sometimes it can feel like you're being a little railroaded, and that is also made more abundantly clear because a lot of the scenarios do have a pretty strict time limit, and I never really feel like I am just kind of exploring a wasteland. I feel like I am really under the gun, under pressure to get things done quickly. So I wish that they would have developed a different system to light the fire under my feet instead of just a time track. But that is really my only major complaint. There are a lot of Waste Knights to choose from. We got Johnny Taylor, the Trailblazer, Sallow Lee, the Slasher, Logan Harris, the Avenger, Zoe Shaw, the Mechanic, a good representation of male and female characters, Jenny Burns, the Huntress, Reverend Evans, the Priest, and Dr. Fang, the Scientist. And then each of the characters has a little story on the back so you can read about their background, what they're doing in the wasteland. There is, like I said, there's a pretty good variety of creatures and druids, an inquisitor, a mimic, a digger, robot, a roadblock. The encounters definitely skew towards combat, but I have had some pretty interesting non-combat encounters. There is a good variety of different kinds of weapons to find, weapons and armor and artifacts. It's fun drawing a new piece of gear because you never really know what you're going to get. One of the little expansions that came with, it's a stretch goal, are these landmarks. And I don't really like the way that the system tells you to play, so I just placed 4 out randomly. I had Google generate some random numbers and put them on the numbered spots. And each one of those tokens represents a different structure that I can go to. And each one of these structures has its own entry in the storybook. And each one of them has a special thing that you can do there. However, because of the time limit, I never really feel like I have the opportunity to go off the beaten path and kind of explore the land. So I am really hoping that they release, I hear rumors that they are releasing a scenario that will be more about just exploring and surviving, maybe some kind of like rogue-like scenario, which would be awesome for this game. But yeah, I am surprisingly happy with Waste Knights 2nd Edition. Again, there's a few little questions I had in the rules, but for the most part, I was able to get this game going quickly, get to the fun, really without a lot of stress and heartache. And when I'm done, it all fits in one box without having to do crazy organization and get all kinds of like extra storage or taking up multiple shelves. So really, really great job on this game. I like it so much that I did something that I don't do a lot. I went back to I think it's on GameFound, and I think the late pledges are still open. I actually just went back and ordered 2 of the expansions. And I'm especially happy to do that since they will all fit, everything will fit in this box. So yeah, Waste Knights 2nd Edition. If you guys are looking for another post-apocalyptic adventure game, I think this is a good one. Just know that it's not just a hex crawl. It is a pretty tightly scripted adventure game. So it's you're not like, it's not like Fallen Lands. It's kind of the direct opposite of Fallen Lands in a lot of ways. But it is also a very cool game that has some limitations, but also has a lot of fun and some really interesting mechanisms, especially this counter combination between the cards, the book, and these threat tokens. So, all right, guys, well, that is a look at Waste Knights 2nd Edition. I hope you enjoyed it, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.